Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Koski of Fun Day back at it once again, kicking it for you and for yours. And this right here does with domestic intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess the big buzzword now is about domestic terrorism and blase skipping, since we done had a couple shootings and stuff like that. So this deals with the remaking of domestic intelligence. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna talk about that. This comes from the Hoover Press, Hoover.org press. Fairly recent. you know. So we're gonna discuss about this and what they think that domestic intelligence should be about. The problem: domestic national security intelligence, or domestic intelligence for short, is intelligence concerning major threats. Let me blow this up a little bit. Is intelligence concerning major threats, politically motivated violence, or equally grievous harms to national security, mounted within the nation's territorial limits, whether by international terrorists, homegrown terrorists, or spies or saboteurs employed by foreign nations. The 9/11 attack reflected a failure of domestic intelligence, having been mounted from within the United States by terrorists who have been in this country for months, some intermittently for years. The danger of terror acts committed on U.S. soil, soil of the United States, have not abated despite the strenuous efforts to improve homeland security. The hostility of significant segments of the vast Muslim world, including large and representative Muslim minorities in such European nations such as the United Kingdom, France, and Netherlands, towards the United States, is unabated. And weapons of mass destruction, atomic bombs, dirty bombs, conventional explosives that scatter radioactivity, material activity, chemical agents, lethal packaging, and deadly when ambush industrial materials are ever cheaper and more available. Their costs will continue to decline and their availability to increase faster than defensive measure plans are deployed at present. Nor can it be assumed that the threat of domestic terrorism with weapons of mass destruction comes only from the Muslim world, or indeed from foreign groups or a nation. The Unabomber, Tony McVeigh, FALN, a violent Puerto Rican separatist organization, the Weather Underground, and the Black Panthers are examples of homegrown U.S. terrorists whose successors may wield more enormously greater lethal power. Now, sidebar on this, you heard about the Unabomber, Tony McVeigh, who was part of a white nationalist group, but they didn't call the KKK or the white nationalist group out. You know what I'm saying? They just called Timothy McVeigh out by himself like he did that Dolo. The FALN, I got some material on them. We're going to get to them a little bit later. The Weather Underground and the Black Panthers. These are examples of homegrown U.S. terrorists to them. All right? The Unabomber and Timothy McVeigh, they were just solo people. They were just, what they call lone wolves. It is difficult to imagine any major attack on the United States other than by an enemy nation that would not have a domestic aspect. Even an attack consisting of a bomb of a ship of ammonium nitrate or carrying a dirty bomb or a nuclear bomb in a U.S. port would take place within the defensive perimeter of the Coast Guard, whose intelligence service is part of the federal intelligence community and would undoubtedly have been prepared for with the help of the people living in the United States, if only because the attackers will need information about port security. The meaningfulness of domestic intelligence is a category that might be questioned on the ground that the border have no significance. That borders have no significance when the main threat to national security comes from international terrorism. Certainly, domestic and foreign intelligence must be closely coordinated, but there is enough difference to justify the preservation of the distinction. Domestic intelligence presents civil liberties concerns that are absent or insinuated when the intelligence agencies operate abroad, since the Constitution and laws of the United States generally do not have any extraterritorial application. And homegrown terrorists with no personal, familiar, ethnic, or political ties to a foreign country are a major potential threat in the area of weapons of mass destruction. Recruitment, training, development, and security requirements are also different for an intelligence officer operating inside and outside of national borders. Surveillance methods are apt to differ too. Domestic intelligence officers must work closely with the nation's public and private police and protection forces to create a nationwide network of eyes and ears. Despite its importance to national security, domestic intelligence is the weakest link in the U.S. intelligence system. It approximates because it entrusts the domestic intelligence to the FBI. A more remote cause is the Americans tend to disregard the foreign experience. In the final report of the National Commission on the Terrorist Attacks upon the United States, the 9/11 Commission, cast only a cursory glance at the foreign intelligence systems, even though some of them, notably the British, French, and Israeli, are well regarded. These are also nations who have a longer experience dealing with terrorism than the United States. Each has a domestic intelligence agency that is separated from its national police force, its counterpart to the FBI, and no power to arrest or other law enforcement powers. In Britain, the domestic intelligence agency known as Security Service, better known as MI5. In France, the Direction de la Surveillance du Territoire, or DST. In Israel, the Shin Bet. Examples of similar agencies in other nations are the Bundespolizeiamt, the BFV in Germany, the Public Security Investigation Agency in Japan, the Australian Security Intelligence Organization, the New Zealand Security Intelligence Services, the Intelligence Bureau in India, the National Intelligence Agency in South Africa, and an agency that I should especially emphasize as a possible model for the U.S. Domestic Intelligence Agency, the Canadian Security Intelligence Services. There is an international consensus that the nation's intelligence system should include domestic intelligence capability that is separate from the police. Consensus includes the nations of old Europe, admired by American liberals, who are at the forefront of opposition to emulating the European approach to domestic security. Although the United States is an outlier in not having such an agency, the 9/11 Commission gave it the back of its hand, so opposed that we created one. Members and staff on the commission visited the Director General of MI5, who told them she undoubtedly that such an agency could operate under the restrictions of the U.S. Constitution and traditionally higher American emphasis on civil liberties and the right to privacy. Even the Brits think it wouldn't work here, 9/11 Commission Chair Thomas King said in a news conference shortly after the Commission issued a report. To defer the opinion for a foreign official concerning the limits of the U.S. law and customs will place on the domestic intelligence service will make little sense. And anyway, all the Director General may have meant was that the U.S. service cannot be a carbon copy of her agency because the legal framework would be different. It does not follow that the difference, which is slightly now, the United Kingdom has signed the European Convention of Human Rights, will render a U.S. agency ineffectual. The 9/11 Commission rejected the idea of the U.S. counterpart to MI5 was tentative. It said domestic intelligence agency wasn't needed if the Commission other recommendations were adopted. Many of them were whittled down by the Intelligence Reform Act and the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004. The legislative purpose of the 9/11 Commission report, recommendation for reorganization congressional oversight of intelligence, to which the Commission attached great importance, was ignored. So we don't know what the Commission would have think of an idea today, or at least we didn't know until the Commission decided to reconstitute itself, albeit as a private, no longer governmental commission, the 9/11 Discord Project. The Commission had been taken back by FBI's inability to rectify the errors identified in the Commission's report of 2004 July. That they were now wondering whether the creation of a separate domestic intelligence agency might have been a right course of action after all. So now they're saying that might be the right course of action. Amidst the modern criticism, which I summarize below, of the FBI continuing inability to perform domestic intelligence role adequately, the President in June of this year ordered the Bureau to build a halfway house to a true domestic intelligence agency by combining its 3 divisions in intelligence responsibility into a new unit called the National Security Service, the NSS. All right, you might have never heard it before. Because 2 of these divisions have law enforcement as well as intelligence duty, nor is it ever clear that intelligence activities of the new entity will be limited to national security intelligence. It will not be a true intelligence agency quite apart from being lodged in the police department. The United States may be right to refuse to create a domestic intelligence agency separate from the police and other countries wrong, or right for them but not for us. We are larger and more diverse. We have a robust civil liberties tradition and face a wide range of threats of terror. But the fact that we should step out of our and give us pause. Although we are from different countries, they are also different from each other. India versus France or Canada, for example. Yet they agree on a need for a separate domestic intelligence from law enforcement. It is no surprise, therefore, that the criticism of their approach that's based on the supposed unique characteristics of the United States turn out to be superficial. One such criticism is that if the Homeland Security Department of 170,000 people to be integrated is going to take a couple of years, standing up a brand new domestic intelligence agency will take a decade. Other is that we're not England. We're not 500 miles across our territory. We have thousands of miles to cover. Would you propose to create an organization that helps people all over the United States as the FBI does? The first criticism overlooked the fact that creating a domestic intelligence agency cannot be compared with creating a Department of Homeland Security, a mega agency that dwarfs the entire domestic intelligence community. We will see later that the total number of federal employees exclusively engaged in domestic intelligence probably does not exceed 7,000, which is fewer than 4% of the number of employees at DHS. In addition, it is more difficult to consolidate a number of heterogeneous agencies into a single department than to create a new agency that, as outlined in Chapter 3 of this monograph, might have a few of 1,500 employees. As for the second criticism, although we are indeed not England, a domestic intelligence agency will not require much field staff because its creation will not entail removing the staff from the FBI. The Bureau will continue to play a large role in domestic intelligence. The critics are correct that other nations tend to be more centralized than the United States. The United Kingdom, for example, has 56 police forces. The United States has more than 20,000. Domestic intelligence has to liaise with local law enforcement. Also, personnel may turn out clues to the existence of terrorism or pro-terrorist gangs and identify members, sympathizers, and foreign contacts. Also, terrorists sometimes commit quite ordinary crimes to finance their terrorist activities. Bank robberies are a traditional example. So this has been characterized as a more recent terrorist activity in this country. It is easy for thousands of local police departments, many quite small, to communicate with one federal agency than with two. But it is most of all that this will require that there is a division of responsibility among the agencies conducting domestic intelligence. Responsible for liaison with local police forces remain with the FBI. Even before September 11, 2001, the FBI had established a joint terrorism task force with local law enforcement authorities. These task forces now exist in scores of cities. But the qualification at most deserves emphasis. Because the FBI relations with local authority in regard to national security intelligence are strained, leaving the liaison responsible entirely to the FBI was made a mistake. The FBI failures. The FBI has not answered the problem of domestic intelligence. As demonstrated by the 9/11 Commission, the Bureau turned in the most lackluster performance of any agency. In the run-up to 9/11, even though it had and has the primary responsibility among the police and intelligence service for preventing a terrorist attack on a nation from within. A request by one of the FBI field officers to apply for a warrant to search the laptop of Zachary Mazzarani, a prospective hijacker pilot, was turned down. A prison report on a flight training by Muslims in Arizona was ignored by FBI headquarters. There was only 2 analyses on bin Laden beat in the entire time in the entire Bureau. Director Louis Freeze directed that the Bureau focus on efforts to counter terrorism was ignored. Concerning the Masari episode, Senator Richard Selby, Vice Chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, had pointed out that FBI headquarters actually prevented intelligence investigators in Minneapolis from notifying the criminal division at the Justice Department about Masari's situation, and prohibited agents from pursuing a criminal search warrant against him. The Bureau did not know what information to possess. It did not approach this information with intelligence analyst mindset and is too often neglected to inform other agencies of what it did know or believe. Senator Shelby concluded that although still renowned for its criminal investigation competence, the FBI has shown a disturbing pattern of collapse and dysfunction in its counterintelligence and counterterrorism functions. These recurring impairments have, in turn, led many observers and members of Congress increasingly to lose faith in the Bureau's ability to meet the national security challenges it faces. Despite several internal reorganizations over the past several years that has failed to rectify the situation. In the light of the FBI's dismal recent history of disorganization and institutional incompetence in its national security work, many of us believe in Congress that have begun to consider whether it might be better to serve the American interests of the American people to separate counterintelligence and counterterrorism from the function of the Bureau into a separate and an entirely separate organization. One that will be free of the structural and organizational and cultural restraints that greatly handicap the FBI ability to conduct domestic intelligence work our country depends upon it to perform. The reasons the senator gave the FBI dysfunction as an intelligence agency are illuminating. Fundamentally, the FBI is a law enforcement organization. Its agents are trained and encouraged, rewarded and promoted within an institutional climate, the primary purpose of which is for prosecution of criminals. Within the FBI, information is stored and retrieved, and simply understood principally through the concept prism of a case, a discrete bundle of information, the fundamental purpose of which is to prove elements of crime against specific potential defendants in the court of law. The FBI rectification of the case pervades the entire organization and is reflected at every level and in every arena in the autonomous, decentralized authority and in addition of the field office. And the priorities are given preferences and given to the individual career paths and the sources of allocation within the Bureau's status of hierarchy, the criminal investigation work, and post hoc investigations. As opposed to long-term analysis and the lack of understanding of concerns with modern information management and technologies and process, it is deeply enriched individuals' mindset that the price of production of evidence support the narrative of the defendant wrongdoing over the drawing of probabilistic inferences based upon incomplete and fragmentary information in order to support decision-making. Far from embracing problematic inferences, knowledge in a law enforcement context aspires its ideal form at least, not only to certainty, but also to admissibility. The two essential concepts or elements of being able to prove someone's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in the court of law. Within such a paradigm, information exists to be segregated and also be employed under carefully managed circumstances with a single specific purpose of which is gathered. After 9/11, the Bureau under new director, Robert Mueller, right? Because Robert Mueller, y'all heard that name before, right? Robert Mueller. Right? He took over as FBI director. Recently was on the stand. After 9/11, the Bureau under new director, Robert Mueller, vows to do better. But his efforts has fallen far short of success, in part because the Bureau has been plagued by excessive turnover in the executive ranks of its intelligence and anti-terror sections, and even more so in its information technology staff. It took the Bureau 2 years after 9/11 just to devise a plan to reform its counterintelligence program. We know now that the plan was a failure, but otherwise the president would not be forced to reorganization of the Bureau. 3.5 years after acknowledging the wake of 9/11, the inadequacy of its information technology for intelligence purpose, the Bureau abandoned $170 million virtual case file project intended to make FBI agents to put input intelligence data into their computers without having to undergo a cumbersome, time-consuming process of preparing a paper record of that information, seeking the necessary proofs, then uploading the document to an existing database. Because the FBI chose to develop a virtual case file non-collaboratively, the federal and many state agencies with which the work is being delayed in upgrading their own system in the hope that by waiting until the VCF is up and running, they configure their own systems become compatible with the Bureau. The Bureau plans to take another 3.5 or 4 years to complete such an acquisition at even a greater, probably much greater expense than that of the failed virtual case file system of information technology adequate to the Bureau's needs. When Senator Selby said about the Bureau's unhappy experiments with information technology in December 2002 remains true today. In addition to these cultural and organizational problems, and perhaps in large part because of them, the FBI has never taken information technology, IT, very seriously. It has found itself with entirely obsolete IT infrastructure that is totally inadequate to the FBI's current operational needs, much less to the task of supporting a sophisticated all-source intelligence function and analysts. As recent as June 2005, more than 3.5 years after 9/11, an FBI official were acknowledging that they must radically change the agency culture if the Bureau is ever going to get to high-tech analysis and survey and surveillance tools they need to effectively fight terrorism. The FBI, they say, must move to decentralize the anagram of 56 field officers that are deeply mistrustful of technology, outsiders, and each other. One reason for the delays in the ordinary experience of the FBI program for upgrading its information technology is that consistent with the Bureau's emphasis on criminal investigation. Its traditional core function, the program is not limited to intelligence. It encompasses the entirety of the FBI operation and the resulting of the scope and ambition of the program endangering its success because criminal investigation, national security intelligence have different methods and priorities. And the company compromises needed to satisfy both sets of users are difficult to devise and carry out. Because investigations of ordinary crimes can yield information of value to national security intelligence collectors, there is a value of having a single database for everything in the FBI files. But that value has been traded off against the cost, delay, and impossible failures of so ambitious a venture. Not that even the ambitious venture fail, for that ambitious to have given the vast storage capacity and the search capacity of today's commercial off-shelf computer software. Google enables near instantaneous searching of 8 billion web pages. Amazon.com enables a near instantaneous matching of millions of people with millions of products. The adaptation of these mature technologies to the needs of the FBI for data storage, retrieval, sorting, and matching should be straightforward. Tens of thousands of FBI special agents doing 4 reports a day of 250 words each, about 4 pages, 250 days a year for 10 years will produce a total number of 1 million pages. That sounds like a lot, but it is only 1/8 of the amount of data that can be searched by means of Google engine search. The failures are rooted in the structure. I am generally skeptical of the organization's solutions to intelligence problems, most of which are not organizational problems. But the FBI's inadequate performance of domestic intelligence function is a genuine and serious organizational problem. Placing domestic intelligence central in a criminal investigation agency ensures, as other agents realize, a poor fit. Mixing law enforcement with counterintelligence simply cannot work. Cops cannot do the work of spies. Criminal investigation is retrospective. A crime has been committed, and investigators go on about trying to find the criminal. And when they do arrest them and continue gathering evidence, there will be a mess on court to prove his guilt. If the criminal activity is under investigation, it is by nature ongoing, as in the case of gang activity. The investigator may allow it to continue until the activity generates irrefutable evidence of guilt. But then he will pounce. And at every stage, he will take great care not to commit a procedural violation that might jeopardize a conviction. He will also balk at the sharing with others at any time any of the information that he may attain in his investigation. Let's say leak tip off the suspect or make it easier for the suspect to defend himself in the court should he be prosecuted. All that the sharing of information about a case can do form in the FBI agent's perspective, as well as that the local U.S. attorney who support agents required to weaken his ability to control future cases. Criminal investigation cases oriented, backward-looking, information-hugging, and fastidious with a fear of reckoning a prosecution. Intelligence, in contrast, is forward-looking, threat-oriented, and rather than case-oriented, freewheeling. It's focused on identifying and maintaining surveillance of suspicious characters and patiently assemble the masses, assembling unrelated data into the patterns that are suggestive as an emergent threat, but that may be based on speculative hypothesis are removed from probable cause, let alone from proof beyond a reasonable doubt. When intelligence is working well, the spy or traitor or terrorist is detected early before he does damage. And often he can be turned to our advantage. The orientation of intelligence towards preventing crimes from occurring or even being contemplated rather than towards prosecution after they occur will prevent a domestic intelligence agency from obsessing over the procedural missteps that can jeopardize a conviction. The FBI argues that because terrorist acts are criminal and intelligence is an element of criminal law enforcement, nor in the case of victimless crimes, where, by definition, law enforcement authorities cannot sit back and wait for the victim to complain, but must penetrate the criminal gang, much as in an intelligence operation directed against a terrorist group. Counterterrorism intelligence can be assimilated into the FBI criminal law enforcement responsibilities. However, the activities which the national security intelligence is concerned differ greatly from ordinary federal crimes. Terrorist activities are politically motivated. In a broad sense of political, that includes motivation founded on religious, class, racial, or ethnic hostility. They are potential and much more dangerous than non-political crimes because they aim to injure or destroy the nation as a whole or entire population groups. Vital institutions otherwise wreak havoc on a large scales. The counterintelligence activities require knowledge of political movements, foreign countries, and languages, operational methods of terrorists, spies, and saboteurs, and the characteristic of available of weapons of mass destruction that the criminal investigators do not possess. It also requires a different mindset. Good police officers learn to think like criminals. Good intelligence officers learn to think like terrorists and spies. The hunter must be empathetic, with a distinct from sympathetic to his story. Cops and spies have different quarries. As explained by intelligence veterans William Odom, FBI want arrest and conviction. They want immediate attention and lots of it. FBI operatives want to make an arrest to put the handcuffs on wrongdoers. They have little patience for sustained surveillance as a suspect of gaining more intelligence. They prefer to gamble on early arrest and intimidating interrogation that might gain a confession. To them, sharing intelligence is an anthem. Intelligence is something to be used, not shared. Intelligence officials do not want public attention. They want to remain anonymous. They do not need arrest authority. They want to follow spies and terrorists secretly, allowing them to reveal their co-conspirators. Their reward comes from providing intelligence to others, not hiding it. They intend to be more thorough and taking on their time to develop evidence both for trials and operational use. They know that they cannot let spies or terrorists get away without risking considerable amount of danger to the country. Cops worry less that criminals will get away. Criminals are abundant, and there are plenty more to arrest. Spies and terrorists will almost always defeat police officers. Spies and terrorists are normally backed by a large state bureaucracy or non-state organization with abundant resources and a worldwide operational support. Criminals seldom are. Thus, the FBI technique for recruiting stoolies, tapping phones, and conducting rough interrogations often work with mobsters, but not with spies and terrorists. Cops worry much less that a criminal got away. Criminal law enforcement is oriented towards punishment, but punishment cannot undo the consequences of a catastrophic attack. Criminal law aims to deter crime by pushing a large enough fraction of offenders to make a threat of punishment credible, as well as to incapacitate those offenders whom the threat of punishment did not deter from committing crimes. By locking them up, or in extreme cases by executing them, especially because they're the most dangerous modern terrorists, are largely undeterrable. Notably, suicide bombers who, because of their first successful attack, cannot be incapacitated after that attack to prevent them from repeating it. Law enforcement alone cannot defeat terrorism. It can actually impede the struggle against terrorism, sometimes by arbitrarily revealing what the government knows, thus giving the terrorists a chance to elude capture by changing their methods of locale, at times failing to intervene early enough, that is, before the crime has been committed. Melissa Mallet points out, the preparation stage of a terrorist attack, the most vulnerable to detection and disruption. The execution stage is the most difficult to disrupt. The preparation stage, which includes recruitment, training, casing, and putting support assets in place, require more people and more movement than the execution phase. All of these activities undertaken by Al-Qaeda in the preparation for the 9/11 attacks required the movement of people and money and communication between cells, creating a hum of activity that the intelligence axes are trained to pick up. The FBI caught some pieces, but made no attempt to assemble them in a larger picture. Identifying and assessing and attacking activities in preparation stage are quintessential intelligence tasks, but the activities themselves are often too ambiguous to be readily provable as crimes. Some are only major crimes, some not crimes at all. Prosecuting persons suspected of being involved in early stages, discussion, target surveillance, etc., for preparing a terrorist attack might mean, when feasible, have value in deterring entry into that stage. Yet, often, the most effective strategy is not to arrest and prosecute at that stage, but rather to monitor suspects in an effort to learn the scope, intentions, membership, and affiliation of the terrorist or proto-terrorist cell. A terrorist plot, once detected, can be disrupted without a cryptic court. Hi, the 16 News team. We hear that you up to no good. An agency that is not responsible for bringing criminals to justice can concentrate full time on the pursuit of terrorists without any distraction created by the complex demands of the criminal justice, including concerns with discovery and proof. Success from the standpoint of technology and be chasing terrorists out of the country and make sure they don't return, or even leaving them in the place of returning to government informants. But detecting threats and preempting them before they are carried out may leave no room for successful prosecution, which is a clue to the difficulty of adapting a law enforcement agency to the intelligence role. Prosecuting of crimes is the lifeblood of law enforcement. The goal of law enforcement is to prevent crime, but the means is to prosecute criminals. A classic domestic intelligence was MI5 double-cross system in World War II. MI5 succeeded in obtaining control over all German spies in England and used them to feed false information and misleading information back to Germany. Prosecuting all of them in a distinctive law enforcement response would have prevented a triumph of disinformation. Similarly, the proper aim of counterterrorism is to prevent and control terrorist cells, not to cause their members to scatter as soon as the arrest of one rings a bell to the other. Penetrating, turning, control, disinformation are delicate intelligence operations requiring skills, training, and aptitude, unlike to be required and honed by the FBI agents converted temporarily into intelligence operatives. In 2002, the FBI in Lackawanna, New York, 6 men of Yemen descent who had attended the Al-Qaeda training camp in Afghanistan. Jeff Smith, a former CIA general counsel, explained how the Domestic Intelligence Service could have done the job differently. The intelligence agency might have infiltrated the group, flipped one or more of its members into double agents, then used them to get closer to higher levels of Al-Qaeda. Instead, the individuals accused of being part of Al-Qaeda were arrested and charged in Buffalo, in a highly publicized case. There were enormous pressure to prosecute these guys. Either elected to come in view that it just doesn't work to have intelligence and law enforcement within the same agency. An exchange between Senator J. Rockefeller and Richard Clark during a joint congressional inquiry into the 9/11 intelligence failure flagged the difficulty of fitting the National Intelligence Agency into the FBI organizational structure. Mr. Rockefeller, one more question, and that is the FBI, where you have people investigating crimes have taken place traditionally. They do not put something on the internet because their internet does not work. They can't communicate with each other even if they have that, because they don't. They don't because they prefer to have case files. And so I am trying to do something. I am carrying information, around my information in the folder that is mine, and have worked on it. And it's just not propriety, it's just good prosecution potential. Now that is an enormous mindset which fights against a lot of what you have been talking about. How does that get overcome? Mr. Clark, well, I think there's two problems there that had to be overcome. One, the notion of focusing on prosecution. When I asked FBI agents in the field, why aren't you going after these guys who are violating their visas or committing petty felonies? You can get them thrown out of the United States because of that. You may not be able to prove in court that they are terrorists, but you can prove they are doing this or have minor infraction to get them thrown out. The answer is the U.S. attorneys do not want us to bother with minor things like that. The U.S. attorneys want, and the head of FBI offices in our cities want big scalps on a wall, big prosecution that results in long sentences. Other thing we have to get over is the notion of withholding information from intelligence, information from headquarters. There is not an understanding of intelligence fusion within the FBI that the way you really put together a case across the country is by letting a little fact here and a little fact there and putting it all together. The law enforcement approach to terrorism has been further disadvantaged by the cause of intelligence data to be evaluated from a too limited perspective of its utility in building a criminal case, and of the returning of information lest the full credit of the successful prosecution can be denied the field office that began the investigation. These disadvantages illustrate a difference in which the fundamental between collecting information for the sake of knowledge and collecting for the sake of building the case. Criminal investigators want to collect enough information to be able to prove their case, and having collected it, they want to hoard it and rather than share it, but not to provide ammunition for the defendant's lawyer to use at trial. The impediment to the FBI embrace of information technology is the Bureau's traditional reluctance to retain complete records, including interview notes and other paperwork of its investigators. Lest defendants use them to their advantage. Prosecutors have a legal duty to turn over their own defense counsel any exploratory material in their possession, and the Department of Justice has an open file policy intended to induce guilty pleas by allowing the criminal defendant's lawyer, to read the department's entire file on the case. A recent incident involving the arrest in New York of two Muslim teenage girls, when the FBI is suspected of wanting to become suicide bombers and held in custody for 6 weeks, illustrates how an example of criminal law response to terrorism can impair vital hearts and minds strategies as well, as may have happened in the Lackawanna case. Shut down and quietly prematurely. The arrest of the two girls caused indignation in the New York Muslim community, whose loyalty and goodwill, as the FBI recognized, as vital safeguards against directing terrorism. It is natural for law enforcement agencies to want to arrest a person suspected of criminal activity. The agency, rather than wanting girls to arrest, will want to discover who had put the idea of becoming suicide bombers in their head. Maybe no one. It's a low-key investigation that might accumulate to simply a chat with the girls' parents. If the girls had a connection, however, indirectly with the terrorist cell, the publicity attendant upon their arrest undoubtedly caused the members to scatter and to reconstitute their cell elsewhere, outside of the FBI. Here's a further example of two cultural problems. The performance of the criminal investigators, unlike the intelligence officer, can be evaluated by objective and indeed quantitative criteria. Such members of such arrests weighted by the successful conviction of these successful conviction, with successful convictions weighted in turn by the length of the sentence imposed, the amount of property recovered, and the amount of favorable public felicity generated. Intelligence officers cannot be evaluated by such objective criteria. Their success is often invisible and indeed unknowable. For example, early plot is detected and disrupted. The more difficult it is to know whether it had a chance of success. Information attained by intelligence officers may only be a small part of the total information that enables a threat to detect and thwart it. This asymmetry performance measure makes it difficult for a police department to hire and retain able intelligence officers. Able employees refer objectives to the subjective performance criteria. They know they can do better judged by such a criteria than if their performance is evaluated by non-objective, non-quantifiable criteria that may include personality, appearance, personal connections, and sheer luck. Thus, in such an agency such as the FBI that combines criminal investigation with intelligence, the able recruiter will gravitate more towards the criminal investigation. They may be required to undergo some intelligence training and to do stints in intelligence jobs, but they will always be looking to return to the main career track. Henry Kissinger has remarked that intelligence personnel in the real world are subject to unusual psychological pressures. Separating from their compatriots by the security walls and operating in the culture of suspicion of even unavoidable secrecy, they are surrounded by an atmosphere of cultural ambiguity. Their unadvisable success are taken for granted, while they are blamed for policies that frequently result from a strategic rather than intelligence misjudgment. This does not sound like a description of an FBI agent, and it casts grave doubt on the wisdom of the FBI method of obtaining intelligence officers, which is to provide intelligence training to its special agents, all of whom are hired and trained as criminal investigators. The worlds of law enforcement and intelligence are far apart. They have different roles, different rules, different cultures, and they do not often speak the same language. The two worlds don't comfortably fit together in the same agency, let alone the same individual. The special agent with intelligence trainer who shuttle back and forth between two worlds. Most FBI employees, including 90% of its special agents, as distinct from its support staff, are stationed in the Bureau's 56 field offices rather than Washington, D.C. headquarters. This geographical dispersal is another reflection of the Bureau's emphasis on criminal investigation and another opinion toward the conduct of national security intelligence. Most federal crime is local and prosecuted locally by one of the 96 U.S. attorney offices, which, like the FBI field offices, are scattered across the nation. FBI agents in these offices essentially work for the U.S. attorney, who is a prosecutor, not an intelligence official. The reluctance of the field office to share information with each other, a factor in which the Bureau resistance to information technology, reflects both on the local focus of the special agents and the object criteria of the advancement that I mentioned. No local office won its case stolen, and its numbers thereby reduced by a number office to which I might have conveyed the results in an investigation of a crime. Hence, the office of origin mentality that treats the field office that originate in this case as its owner. But while most federal crime is local, the principal dangers to domestic security at the present emanate from international terrorist groups. Clues to their activity may be scattered all over the world. Effective intelligence requires a combining scraps of information regardless of geographic origin rather than allowing information to be sequestered by local offices. I use scraps advisedly. To bring it out is still another problem with providing domestic intelligence to the FBI. Because of the gravity of the threats to national security, intelligence officers must track down any lead, however implausible, that might point to an attack that will endanger national security. Most of those leads lead nowhere, let alone to an arrest, prosecution, conviction, and a sentence. Chasing such will-o'-the-wisp is alien to the police mentality for ordinary crime work. Police do not chase down every tip, lead, clue, etc. for possible criminal activity. The expected cost of such an ordinary crime is, in most cases, too small to make such cases cost justified. If a crime occurs, the FBI is not to blame. Crimes are expected. 15,000 people are murdered in the United States every year. The terrorist attacks are not expected because of their great potential of gravity. More effort must be expended on preventing them than the police is spending them on preventing the commission of ordinary crimes. Hence, the emphasis of national security intelligence on prevention, in contrast to the FBI's focus on apprehension. The dominance of the Bureau field officers reflect passivity that characterize criminal investigation. This is related to not emphasizing an apprehension over prevention. FBI field agents are not beat officers patrolling on foot or in squad cars. They are accustomed to waiting until they receive a complaint of a possible criminal activity before swinging into action. They do not go looking for crimes in the offing. They resent and resist being told by headquarters to focus their resources in a particular area. Indeed, they resist prioritization, which may deprive them of already targets of opportunity, such as referenced by the local police officer of a gun or narcotics case. The merit of the criminal investigation and domestic intelligence in the FBI has been complicated coordination with domestic and foreign intelligence. Often the same suspects are tracked outside the United States by the CIA and inside by the FBI intelligence divisions. Yet the CIA and the FBI have a history of mutual suspension and anti-empathy. This had begun to diminish even before 9/11, especially when the top of the two agencies. But the cultural and procedural gulf between the criminal investigation and intelligence operation remains, and has been aggravated by the recent efforts of the Bureau to snatch terror from the embattled CIA and appear coordination between the two agencies, just as it's done within the FBI. The agent's 100% dedication to domestic intelligence would do it better than the FBI, which is almost at 20% intelligence. Thus, at least 80% of criminal investigation and consequences are dominated by criminal investigators. In the wake of 9/11, rather than create a separate national security intelligence services, the Bureau decided to give its special agents training and intelligence as well as criminal investigation. This is a recipe for under-specialization, unfortunately now codified by the Intelligence Reform Act, and therefore probably unaffected by the new reorganization, making it all the more likely to be A-list recruits will pursue careers in criminal investigation and rather than become intelligence officers. Not all intelligence analysts in the FBI are special agents. It is true. But their section and utilization for further evidence of the mismatch between intelligence and crime fighting. Many have been recruited from the Bureau's clerical staff, have been given functionary training, lasting only 5 or 7 weeks. It is not surprising a lot of their origin and training are still active foreign duties that are not analytical in nature, such as escort trash and watch duty. Escort duty is following visitors such as contractors around the FBI office to make sure they do not compromise security. Trash duty involves collecting all official trash to be incinerated. Watch duty involves answering phones and radio. All of this is unlikely to change despite the reorganization ordered by the presidents. The effectual control of the organization requires some uniformity in compensational methods, recruitment, evaluation, promotion, and working conditions in order to minimize conflict, foster cooperation, and avoid confusion and uncertainty. If the mission assigned to an organization are too desperate, if the optimal performance requires another different methods, personnel policies, supervisory structures, and information technologies, etc., if indeed, as the case of criminal investigation and domestic intelligence, the missions are incompatible. The compromise is necessary to propose a requisite on the minimum uniformity will cause performances of the mission to be suboptimal. If the shoe came in only one size, it would be cheap to manufacture, but most people will be fully shotted. Because criminal investigation is a dominant mission in the prevailing culture of the Bureau, inherent tension between criminal investigation and national security intelligence continue, long after the shock of 9/11, to resolve in favor of the former. But if the FBI really wanted to be a criminal investigation agency, explain how to explain its desire to dominate domestic intelligence, why isn't it happy to succeed that function away to a new agency? Why is it adamant to resist the creation of such an agency and even its own agency capabilities are preserved? There are several reasons. A government agency that surrenders turf, even turf it does not particularly want, signal weakness that may invite further raids from competing agencies as the CIA is learning from its sorrow. Because counterintelligence is now a national priority, the agency has a budgetary and public relations incentive, as well as reasons of prestige to be given as large as a role as possible in counterterrorism. Much of the major tool is domestic intelligence, because intelligence is an unpopular activity that stirs civilian concerns at both the right and left ends of the political spectrum, and that yields fewer discernible successes than criminal prosecution. It is in the Bureau's interest to continue to place greater emphasis on arrests and prosecution, both of terror suspects and of ordinary criminals, than intelligence operations. The FBI cannot mollify my assurance that it will not be cut out of the intelligence business. The Domestic Intelligence Agency will be competing with the Bureau for funds. Moreover, the Bureau may lack the confidence in the intelligence model of combining national security intelligence with criminal investigation. Is actually the superior one. The WMD mission critique. The objectives of combining intelligence and criminal investigation in the same agency is not merely theoretical and comparative. Other nations do it differently. They are also empirical. I gave examples earlier. Here I focus on a scathing critique of the FBI by the Commission of the Intelligence Capabilities of the United States regarding weapons of mass destruction, the WMD Commission for short, led by former Senator Charles Bob and Judge Lim Silverman. The report was to devote almost an entire chapter to the FBI's post 9/11 performance. It is even more critical to the Bureau than the 9/11 Commission report had been. The reasons may be that by the end of March 2005, when the WMD Commission issued a report, the FBI had 3.5 years since 9/11 attacks to get its stuff together, and despite Mueller's efforts, had failed to do so. Yet the failure had been evident early. To quote Senator Shelby again, despite the repeated reorganization, the FBI has simply performed too poorly for the American people to have much faith in its ability to meet certain criteria and future challenges, no matter how aggressive reform plans are announced by the FBI management. Even after September 11, in fact, the FBI deputy director sent an angry email message to field officers declaring that he was amazed and astounded at the special agents in charge, SACS, of the field officers still refuse to commit essential resources to fight against terrorism and still refuse to share information properly with headquarters. The WMD Commission remarked politely that the FBI had made a significant national progress since 9/11, but it gave no examples, while noting the Bureau's continued inability to acquire an adequate computer system in its chaotic organization in which domestic intelligence is split up among three separate sections: intelligence, counterterrorism, and counterintelligence, and no one is in charge. The commission reported the FBI hoped to get its intelligence act together by 2010 at the earliest. The FBI attitude reflecting the domination of the Bureau by the scattered field is exemplified remarks that Bin Laden is never going to Del Mines, Iowa. So if Bin Laden is smart, he'll attack Del Mines because we know it's not protected. A successful attack in the heartland will be even more damaging to the moral of the American population as a whole than another attack on New York or Washington. No American will feel safe any longer. The commission discovered that the Bureau had placed 96% of its intelligence budget in divisions not set as the direct authority of the National Intelligence Agency, and had given an executive assistant director of intelligence a position not filled until 18 months after 9/11 attacks awoke the Bureau from its intelligence slumber. Who is the subject of that authority, no power, and virtually no staff? Another game the FBI official plan is eliminate job description that replace the job holder on the authority of the National Director of Intelligence. These invasions may now end with a new reorganization, but remain illustrative under the FBI mindset, which is unlikely to change. The commission noted the FBI continued failure that this, after 3.5 years of obstinate striving, the institute reforms necessary to transform the FBI into an intelligence organization must be overcome. The FBI has not construed this intelligence program in a way that will remote integrate in the intelligence efforts of its ambition, which have led it unnecessary to new terrorist battles with the CIA. While the FBI has made steps in the right direction since September 11, it has many miles to travel. It takes many steps to even add up to 1 mile. In the FBI's latest effort to build an intelligence capable to overcome the resistance that has struggled from past reforms, in our view, the effort this time is more determined, but the outcome is still in doubt. Before the Intelligence Reform Act changed things, the FBI Office of Intelligence was responsible mainly for training and recruitment. But for operations, they were the responsibility of the Bureau of Counterterrorism and Counterintelligence Division. The act renamed the Office of Intelligence and Directorate of the Intelligence and assigned it a various of important tasks, including supervision of all national intelligence programs, projects, and activity at the Bureau. But it did not mention the other divisions. 6 months after the act was passed, the Directorate of Intelligence was still not in charge of the Bureau's national security intelligence. The head of the other two divisions did not report to the Director-in-Chief. The director remained a spelling counterpart of the CIA Director of Intelligence, the Analytic Branch, while the Counterterrorism and the Intelligence Division responded to the CIA Director. So until reorganization is complete, the FBI will not have domestic intelligence services in any sense, but instead 3 services, each having intelligence responsibility and the criminal investigations responsibilities to boot. The Directorate of Intelligence is not limited in scope and concerning the terrorists of other threats of national security. It is also responsible whether ordinary civilians within the jurisdiction or a reorganization can change this unclear. And the Counterterrorism and the Counterintelligence Division are engaged in arresting, gathering information for prosecuting terrorists and spies, as well as pure intelligence and counterintelligence. Indeed, the head of the Counterintelligence Division, rather than being an intelligence professional, began his career as a police officer, and since becoming an FBI special agent in 1983, had, until 2004, been involved in criminal investigation rather than intelligence. FBI officials have acknowledged that the Bureau based appointments to supervise positions in intelligence or managerial experience rather than intelligence experience. This means that criminal investigators will continue to dominate intelligence because of a few of the Bureau's intelligence specialists at the requisite of managerial experiences. And there you have it. So they still been trying to remake this investment intelligence, and they, you can say this come back from 2005, somewhere around there. I'll say 2005, 2006. And 13 years later, they still have the same problem. Go figure. You know what I'm saying? So, but domestic intelligence is going to be on the forefront now since there's really no more Muslims, to knock off and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So they got to find a new person to pick on. So that's what's coming up next. But they got to find a reason to spend all this money, and domestic intelligence is going to be the new hot thing coming up. As you said before, the FBI stuff is lacking far behind Google and Amazon. And we know Amazon Jay Bales, he's with the CIA, and Google is with the Chinese. Go figure. So this is how the game is being played. Anyway, it's a Coach Gift Fun Day. Hit the like button. It's kind of long with it, makes a couple of grammatical errors. But I thought it was very important to come out on this day to remaking a domestic intelligence and how they're nowhere near the capabilities they need to be near. Anyway, peace. Have a wonderful day. You know what I'm saying? And like the video. Peace. Nowhere near.